Hello guys, welcome back to another video. So in this tutorial, I want to show you guys how you can take the Lyra Starter Game and make it into a Battle Royale game. So I will show you step by step how you can convert the project and add your own Battle Royale mode, implementing everything that you see here in this video. Now, if you aren't interested in watching this full video, or maybe you just want to download the completed Battle Royale project, you can actually download it on my Patreon. I'll leave a link in the description below, so that if you do not want to follow the tutorial, you just want to download the Battle Royale game, you can do so by going to my Patreon. Now, big thanks to my Patreon supporters for sponsoring this video, and I'll be working a lot on more future Lyra tutorials, adding vehicles, tanks, planes, and whatnot. So guys, stay tuned, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and jump right into the video. Alright, so very first thing is I have the Lyra Starter Game downloaded here. Now this is a completely blank project, so I'm going to show you from start to finish how we go about implementing the Battle Royale mode. Now, the Lyra Starter Game isn't the most beginner-friendly project. I want to make that very clear. So I'm going to do my best in this video to explain everything that I do, but just note that if you are a beginner, some of the concepts in this video might be confusing at times. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started. So the very first thing that you want to do is, if you go into your content folder here, if you scroll down, you want to make sure you can see here the plugins and engine folder. So you can do that by clicking the settings and clicking these two checkboxes, show engine and show plugin content. That's just because all of the Lyra content is actually inside of the plugins folder. So anyways, now that we've done that, we can go ahead and create a new level, and we're just going to make this basic level here. Okay, and this will be the demo level for our Battle Royale mode. So we can go ahead and file, save current level as, and we want to save this level to our plugins folder in the shooter maps content, maps. We can name this Battle Royale map, and just go ahead and click save. And what we want to also do is really quickly just make a landscape. So go into landscape mode and just click create, and we can just add some mountains or whatnot, and maybe sculpt a really simple island. It doesn't really have to be fancy by any means. And then over here I'll make a lobby island. So again, it doesn't really have to be fancy. Like I said, this is just for showing how you'd implement this. So we have a really simple map here, and this will just represent our island, and this will represent our little lobby island. So right now, if we were to hit play, nothing is really going to happen. We're going to spawn in with this little pawn. Now this pawn can't really do anything. We don't have the default character, and we can really easily change that. So if you go to the world settings window, and if you don't have this window, you want to go to window, world settings. But if you go in the world settings here under the game mode, you're going to see here the default gameplay experience. Now the Lyra project uses these default gameplay experiences. Basically, they are like game modes. So you have elimination and control points. Let's just go with the elimination game mode. And if I hit play now, you're going to see we actually spawn in with our character. So we can run around the map and shoot our weapon and all that good stuff. Now what we want to do is we want to implement our own gameplay experience. So if we go ahead and click this browse to asset, it's going to show it inside of our content browser. Now let's go ahead and just duplicate this shooter game elimination. So go ahead, right click and duplicate it. We're going to name this B_shooter game_battle royale. Now if you go ahead and double click to open this up, so this class is basically where all of the information for our game mode is stored. So we can go ahead and expand some of these windows here, And you're going to see that there's actually quite a bit of stuff in here. So just go ahead and expand all of these tabs. And now I'm going to just take a minute to explain everything right here. So inside of your experience definition, basically you're going to find a couple references here to things like the character pawn, the input, standard components, the HUD, which is like the user interface. You're going to find here a couple of different abilities that our character has. Then down here you're going to see there's a list of components that the character also has. So we have things like the team deathmatch scoring system, the music manager that manages all the music, the bot spawner, the setup to teams component, team spawning rules, and pick random character. So these are all the different components that add different functionality to the experience definition. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and completely customize this experience definition to implement our Battle Royale mode. So we can start by removing some of these components in here. So for example, if we want to get rid of the bots, we can just go ahead and delete this bot spawner component. So on the index here, click this drop down and just click delete. Of course, if you wanted to, you could keep the bots. Like I said, it's totally up to you. But in our case, we're just going to delete it. Now the scoring mode, we're going to create our own scoring system. So we'll leave that there for now. The setup to teams, we're actually going to completely customize this because we want a free-for-all mode, basically where all the players can attack each other. That way it's, a traditional Battle Royale mode. So let's go ahead and customize that right now. So if you go to the two teams data asset here, if you click this browse to asset, you're going to find it in the content drawer. What we want to do is if we double click to open this, we're going to expand this and you see we have these teams to create. So we have a red team and a blue team. And if you click this down arrow, you see we have also a green team and a yellow team. So if you wanted to, you could add additional teams. Now what we're interested in is we want to go ahead and duplicate this. So go ahead and duplicate this asset and rename this to B_team setup FFA. So this will be our free-for-all mode. So go ahead and open that. And instead of creating just a red team and a blue team, what we're going to do is clear this out and just add some more of these map elements. So 1, 2, 3, team 4, team 5, team 6, team 7, and so on. So we want to create just a bunch of different teams, and this will allow us to have a free-for-all mode. So this is a really easy way to implement free-for-all, because the way that the Lyra game works is once a player joins a game, they will be assigned to the first empty team, then the next player will be assigned to the next empty team, and so on, all the way down to the last team. And then if the last team is full, it will go back to the first. So for example, it would fill all the way from top to bottom, and then once there's a 13th player, that player will join team 1. So a really easy way to implement a free-for-all mode is to just add a bunch of different teams. That way the players will be on different teams and they can all damage each other. So you can go ahead and add a lot more teams depending on how many players you want. Like for example, if you're going to have 40 to 60 different players. Like I said, this is a really easy way to set up free-for-all. There probably are some other ways that you could set this up. This works entirely fine. So go ahead and close that out. Now all we have to do is assign that component class. So if you click the drop down here, we just need to search for FFA and B_team setup FFA. So now we have that component implemented, and technically we should be able to test this out. So if you hit the 3 drop down buttons over here, set the number of players to 2, the net mode has clients, and play in a new editor window. So this will play our game with 2 windows so we can test it out. So right now we should be on 2 different teams. So you can see we can damage each other. And if you were to play with more than 2 players, you'll see that they're all on different teams. Now next up, the team spawning rules. I believe this has to do with either the changing of the color or spawning on the map. What we can do is go ahead and just delete that component. Like I said, you can completely customize this, add more components, or remove certain ones that you don't need. Alright, so next up, what we want to start implementing is our scoring system. So this component class, the B_team deathmatch scoring, if you actually go ahead and open this up, this blueprint class holds all of the logic that determines how to set the score of the game, how to set the timer, what to do when the game is completed, or what to do when someone scores a point, and all that logic is stored inside of this class. So what we want to do is create another version of this class to basically create our Battle Royale mode so that we can handle all the scoring as well as our plane that will spawn on top of the map and some of the other features of our game. So let's go ahead and create another version of this class. So if you look at the top right here, you're going to see parent class. The parent class is this B shooter game scoring base. So if we browse to that, we have the actual base class. So what we can do is right click and create a child of that class. And then we can name this B_scoring Battle Royale. Then we want to make a folder to put this Battle Royale scoring class in. So under the shooter core content, this is in the plugins folder. We're going to create a brand new folder. So right click, create a new folder, and we'll name this Battle Royale. Okay, and now if we go back to where we were before in the shooter core content game, we can move our scoring Battle Royale to our Battle Royale folder. So go ahead and drag and drop and move here. So now we can go ahead and double click to open that up. And now we have this blank blueprint that we can start working in. So very first thing that we want to do is delete the tick and delete this parent event begin play. Then off of the event begin play, we want to do switch has authority, just to make sure everything that executes off of this will run on the server. Then off the authority, we can do sequence. And the very first thing that we want to do is wait for experience ready. So we're going to wait for everything to be loaded in and complete. And then we want to get Lyra game phase subsystem. And off of here, we want to do a start phase. Okay, so when we are ready, we want to do a start phase, and the phase that we want to start is the phase warm-up. So what this is doing is it's getting the Lyra game subsystem and starting the warm-up phase. Now there are these other phases such as post-game and playing, and this is really important when you're using Lyra because this works with all of the built-in features that they have if you use this phase system. And it makes your job a lot easier when the game ends, when you go to the post game and whatnot, because then the game will reset after a certain amount of time and it'll reopen the map and whatnot. Basically, you'll just use all of the built-in features that it already has. Okay, so we need to bind this phase to an event. So add custom event. And we want to name this event wait for players. So off of this event, we want to wait for players here. And basically, what we're going to do, very first thing, is go ahead and get Lyra global ability system and apply effect to all. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to apply a gameplay effect to all the players, and that is the gameplay, so GE_pregame lobby. So what this effect does is it makes it so that players can't damage each other when they spawn in the level, and it also shows a little widget on their screen saying that it's waiting for players to join the game. So we can go ahead and test this out. If I just play with one player, I'm going to spawn in, and we actually forgot to assign our game mode. So let's go ahead and change that real quick. So if you go to your Lyra experience definition, your Battle Royale, if you scroll down here to the component class, Team Deathmatch Scoring, you want to change this to our Battle Royale Scoring. Compile and save that. And then I also forgot, we actually need to assign the experience here. So we want to assign this to our Battle Royale, shooter game _ Battle Royale. Save that and hit play. And now you're going to see at the very top we have this waiting for additional players. And also we don't have any of the bots because we removed that component. So basically that little widget is because of this gameplay effect that we've applied, the pre-game lobby. Now you're also going to see this error here, none trying to read deathmatch scoring. That's just because we haven't removed a couple of these components, or we haven't modified some of these things yet, but we will get to that towards the end of the video. So right now we have our gameplay effect, and basically the waiting for players event, what we want to do is we want to check and see if there are a certain amount of players that have joined the game before starting the actual game. So one way to do that is to get common user subsystem, and from here you can get max local players. So if you wanted to check and see if you have a certain amount of players before starting the game, for example in Fortnite they wait till they have, I think, 30 to 60 players before starting the game. So off of here what you could do is first you want to actually divide this by 2, because for whatever reason it will always return twice the amount of current players. And you could print to a print string to see how many players are in the game. So you could use this to test and see if you have a certain amount of players. Or what you could also do is you could wait for a certain amount of time, so you could do a delay. And maybe you want to delay for about 60 seconds or maybe up to like 5 minutes to wait for a certain amount of players before starting the game. It's completely up to you. For testing purposes, I'll just set this to 15 seconds. And then once we've waited about 15 seconds for people to join, we're going to start the game. So add a custom event and name this Start Game. And off the completed here, after we've waited about 15 seconds, we can do the Start Game. So this will call this event down here. So now off of this Start Game, we can start setting up our Battle Royale game. In our case, what we want to do is we want to spawn an airplane that flies from one point of the map to the other side of the map. And that will give our characters the ability to jump out of the airplane and parachute down onto the map. What we want to do before we start working on this logic is we want to go ahead and download a 3D plane model that we can use for this Battle Royale project. Now you can get a free plane model if you go to the Unreal Engine Marketplace. If you search for C130 and filter by free, you're going to see we have this C130J Transport West free 3D model, and you can go ahead and add this to your project. So go ahead and just click add. You want to click show all projects and scroll down till you find your Lyra Starter Game. You might see here that the asset is not compatible. All you have to do is click this drop down and click 4.27 or whatever version that is closest to that, and click add a project. Now it will go ahead and download and add that. And now in the vehicles, West Transport, we should have this skeletal mesh, this plane model that we can start using to spawn our characters in and fly the characters above the map. Of course, you could customize this and use a bus or whatever sort of model that you want. It's totally up to you. So now that we have that, we want to go back to our plugins folder here in our shooter core content and our Battle Royale folder. And you can actually right click and set a color to maybe bluish color. That way we have the folder highlighted here. But now that we have that, we can go ahead and open it up, and we want to add a new blueprint for our plane. So right click and add a new blueprint class and expand the all classes here. We want it to be of the type pawn. So search for pawn, select the pawn and click create. Then just name this to B_plane actor. Go ahead and double click to open that up. Now for our plane, we're going to click on the components tab and add a skeletal mesh component. This will be our plane mesh. Then we can add a spring arm, and on our spring arm we can add a camera. Now select your plane mesh, and in the details panel here under the skeletal mesh we can assign that SK West Transport C130. Compile and save that, and then take your spring arm here and move it to the tail of the airplane, and select your spring arm component. In the details we can set the arm length to 800, and then we can rotate it at an angle. That way our players can see the entire plane in the camera viewports. Compile and save that, and we should be good to go. In the event graph, we want to add some logic for moving our aircraft across the map. So very first thing that we want to do is we want to go back in our content drawer, and we want to create a waypoint. That way our plane knows from which point should it drive to cross the map. So in our content drawer, Battle Royale folder, right click, create a new blueprint class of the type actor, and we can just name this to plane waypoint. Double click to open it up, and inside of it it'll only need two components. Click the add. Going to add a billboard, and this is just a visual representation for us, the developer. It won't be actually showing in game at all. Go ahead and set the scale of this billboard to 16 by 16 by 16. It's a lot larger. We can add an arrow component, and we can also scale this up maybe 1 by 1 all across. And that should be good. Now we just need one variable. So go to the variables tab, click the plus button, and name this to destination point. And the variable type will be this plane waypoint. So search for plane waypoint and select the object reference. Compile and save that, and make sure you click the instance editable and expose on spawn. So that's all that we need for our plane waypoint. So we go ahead and close that. In our map here we can place that waypoint. So drag and drop it into our level. And now you see we have this visual representation of where our plane will spawn in and move. So we have one waypoint over here. Let's go ahead and duplicate it by Alt drag on there. So hold down Alt and drag off of there to duplicate it. So we can move that over here. And now you see we have basically two different waypoints at two different locations across the map. Now what we also want to do is set the destination, target destination. So if you go in the details panel, we have this destination point variable that we've exposed. So that allows us to click on this little pick actor button, and we can select our plane waypoint 2 and set that as our destination point. So now we have this basic route where we travel from point A to point B. So now that we have our waypoints, you can technically, if you wanted to, you could duplicate this and add more different routes at different angles across the map. But for now, we'll just leave it as the 2. So if we go into our plane actor now, we can start implementing the logic for moving our plane across the map. So one way we can do that is off the event begin play, drag off of here and type get all actors of class, and we can filter by our plane waypoint. So now we're going to get all of the plane waypoints on our map. So this will be really nice because we can chart random routes across our map, and we can make our own custom routes by just duplicating these waypoints that we've created. So off of here we want to do a for each loop, hook this up, and off of the array element we want to get destination point. So we're getting that variable, and we want to check and see if this is valid. So right click the pin and convert to a validated get. So this will check and see if our plane waypoint has a destination point, because if it doesn't, then we don't want to use it at all because it's not a valid route. It only has a point A and it doesn't have a point B. So now we can set, we want to get actor location, and we want to set actor location of our plane. So this will set the location of our plane to the location of the waypoint. We also want to set the rotation, get world rotation of our arrow, and we want to set actor rotation of our plane to the rotation of our arrow. So depending on the rotation of this arrow, you could rotate it to create a different route if you wanted to, and that will set the plane's orientation to that arrow. And then next up we want to get the location of our destination point, and we want to save that. So off this destination point we want to get actor location, and go ahead and drag off of here and promote that to a variable and rename that to destination location. Okay, and hook that up. And then now we can just take the execution pin and plug it into the break, and we want to actually use a for each loop with break. So go ahead and delete this and hook this one up instead, and hooked up the loop body, the array elements, and then take the execution pin and plug it into the break. And we can add a reroute node by double clicking on the execution pin. So just double click on it to add a reroute node. Okay, so we have this very simple loop that will check all of the waypoints and get the very first one to plot a route. Now you can go in and add some sort of random get of the plane waypoints if you wanted to add a random route system, but for the sake of this tutorial we'll just leave this as is. So it's just going to get the very first route. But again, if you wanted to, you could go in and customize this to create a random route system. Okay, now that we've completed, what we want to do is add custom event. We want to name this fly plane. So off of the complete, we can call our custom event fly plane, and we can go ahead and just drag all of this and add a comment and just name this find route. So all this is doing is it's finding a route, and then once it's found its route, we can fly our plane. So we can start moving our plane across the map. So we want to actually change this event to a run on server event. And if you're not familiar with the different types of replication events, you don't have to worry about it for now. I'll be making a course on the multiplayer fundamentals and multiplayer basics, so stay tuned for that, because I'll explain a lot of the things relating to multiplayer, because there are quite a bit of rules that you have to follow when making a multiplayer game. Okay, so we have our run on server event. We want to add another custom event, so add custom event, name this to fly plane multi, and change the replication to multicast. So now we can call our fly plane multi off of our events on server event. So what this is doing is it's running this multicast that will execute on all of the clients. Okay, now what we want to do is off of here, we want to do a timeline. So click this add timeline. We can name this to location timeline. So what this timeline will do is help us move our plane across the map. So go ahead and double click to open it up. And really quickly, we'll go ahead and add a track, add a new float track. The length of the track needs to be set to 800. So this will be in seconds. How long will it take for the plane to fly across the map? You could obviously customize this. Then we can scroll out here and add a key. Select the key, set the time and value to 00. Then zoom out, add another key, select that key, and set the time to 800 and the value to 1. Go ahead and click these zoom fit to horizontal and vertical. And if we scroll out, we can select both of these keys, right click, and set this to an auto so that it will blend from the two values. And this will make a lot more sense as we continue, so just stay with me. Go ahead and close that. And now we can use that value to blend from our starting point to our destination point. So off of the update, we want to set actor location. And what we want to do is off our location, we want to do a vector interpolate to. And this will allow us to blend between two vector values, or in our case, two different location points. So the current point will be get actor location. So this will be our current location. The target point will be our destination location. And for the delta time, we'll plug this into our new track 0. And so every second, or basically every tick, this will move our plane from our current location to our destination location. And we want to set the interp speed to 0.5. Okay. And I also believe we need to set this to sweep, and that will come in handy later. I'll explain that later on. But right now we should be able to see our plane move in our level. And real quick, off of the finish, we want to destroy actor. So after our plane is done moving to our destination point, we can just delete it from the game. So we can now add a comment, and just name this plane movement, compile and save that. And now we should be able to spawn this into our level and use this in our Battle Royale scoring blueprint. So I know we did just a lot of work to implement this plane and all the logic for it, but right now we need to go ahead and implement this in our Battle Royale scoring mode, because what we want to do is we want to spawn the plane in and then get all of the players and set their cameras to that plane and allow them to jump out of the plane. So in our scoring Battle Royale mode, we should be ready to set this up now. So off of this start game function, we can spawn actor from class. And the class that we can spawn is our B_plane actor. For the location, what we can do is right click and split the struct and promote our spawn location to a variable. And we can just get, say, the location of this waypoint, right click and copy that, and go into the spawn transform location, right click and paste that. It can be anywhere in the sky as long as it's in the sky, because the plane will automatically set its location to a waypoint anyways, but this will just spawn the plane in the sky. Now what we want to do is we want to get all the players. So get all actors of class, and the type of class will be our Lyra character. And then we want to do a for each loop. For each loop, hook up the array. We can go ahead and drag off the array element and get Lyra player controller. So we'll get the player controller, and we want to set view target with blend. So we want to set the view of our player to the camera of our plane. So click the return value and hook that up to the new view target, and set the blend time to 1, I think for 1 second. And then now we should be able to see our plane spawn in our level, and we should also see our character's camera set to the plane's camera and the plane move across the level. So let's go ahead and test this out now with 2 different characters. So we'll go ahead and hit play. So waiting for additional players. We're going to wait about 15 seconds for the plane to spawn in. And you can see our camera is now set to the plane's camera. And basically the plane will start moving. You're going to see it starts off really slow, but then it starts to fly from the waypoints across the map. Okay, so right now we can't really eject or do anything, and the propellers of the plane aren't actually even moving. So you can see we still need to implement a couple things to this plane. So let's go ahead and escape and exit out of there. So to add the propellers to move, that's actually a really easy thing to do. So if you go to the plane actor, viewport, select the plane model, all we have to do is assign an anim blueprint. And this plane already comes with one, so go ahead and click the anim class, click the down arrow here, and search for the C1 West Transport C130J. Select that, compile and save that, and we want to go ahead and browse that and open that up. So find that in the content browser, double click to open that up, and we just need to adjust one value to make the propeller spin, and that is this propeller speed variable. So in the details panel on the right, we can change this to 2000, and that will make our propeller spin. So we'll go ahead and close that, and in the blueprint here you can see our propellers are now spinning. Okay, so really easy to implement that. Now the other thing that we want to implement is we want to allow our character to jump out of the plane, because right now our player is just stuck in the plane and all they can do is watch while it flies across the map. So adding the eject feature is really easy. If we go to our content drawer just go to the all, search for hero shooter, and you're going to find this hero shooter mannequin blueprint class. So double click to open that up. And in here, this is basically the character class for the Lyra character. Now we're going to implement the eject feature inside of the character class. Please note that there are many different ways you can do this. You can implement a gameplay ability and bind it to a key. I'm not super familiar with gameplay ability system, so I'm just going to implement it the classic way inside of the character class. So if we right click, we can go ahead and add a key event. So you could add a space bar. You could always add a custom input, and that way the player could bind it to whatever key they want. But we're just going to use the space bar right now. And off of the pressed here, we want to call a custom event. So add custom event, eject on server. So jump out of plane on server and set the replication to run on server. Then off the press, we just want to call that eject on server. And then we want to do a branch. And we want to check and see if our player is currently in the plane right now. So add a new variable, will be a Boolean, and we can rename this to is in plane ? Then we can go ahead and hook that up for the condition for our branch. So we're just going to double check and see if we are in the plane. If so, we can then give our player the ability to jump out. So we also want to add another variable. So click the plus button here and name this to plane reference. Set the variable type to b_plane actor. Object reference. Compile, save that. Go ahead and get the plane reference, right click and convert it to a validated get, and hook it to the true. So now, if we are in the plane, we want to get our plane reference, check and see if it is valid, because if so, we want to get actor location, get the location of the plane, and then we want to set the actor location of our character. So set actor location, hook that up to the is valid. And for the location, we want to add an offset. So disconnect that, drag off of here, and add a vector plus, or just add a add operator, and add the actor location plus, on the z-axis we want to do a -200. So we're going to do -200 units underneath the plane is where we're going to spawn our character. That way our character doesn't spawn inside of the plane or above it or whatnot. Then we just want to get Lyra player controller, and we want to set view target with blend. So we're going to set the new view target to self. That way we can set our view back to our character's view. In the blend time, we can set this to 1. And then we want to get our is in plane Boolean, set that to not true. So set that to false. Okay, when we can add a comment over this and name this jump out of plane. And that should be all set. So if we go back in our scoring Battle Royale, all we have to do now is set those variables in our character. So off the array element, cast to hero shooter mannequin. And if you wanted to, you could add a interface, blueprint interface. That way you're not casting. But for the sake of this tutorial, we'll just use a cast. And off of there, we want to set is in plane to true, and we also want to set plane reference, and set plane reference, hook that up to the spawn actor of the return value up to the plane reference. So now our character should be able to jump out of the plane. So if we go ahead and hit play from here, okay, so we're above the map, we can go ahead and hit the space bar, and you see our character ejects out of the plane. We can do it for the other character as well. And that is basically all set up. So now we can go ahead and attack our other player. But you're going to notice right now we currently can't damage the other player. So you can see we can't damage our other character. And that's actually because we've applied our pre-game lobby effect. And you'll notice that because of the waiting for additional players widget on my screen right now. So what we want to do is we want to set or remove that effect. That way we can give our characters the ability to damage each other. We also want to add a scoreboard so that we can show how many players are left. And then lastly, we also want to add a circle that will start shrinking around the map. So let's go ahead and start implementing all of those things. So the very first thing is we want to go ahead and go to our scoring battle royale. So once all of our characters are set to the plane's camera view, so once all of that is completed, we want to go ahead and remove that pre-game lobby effect. So if you remember here, we have this apply effect pre-game lobby. Go ahead and copy that, Control C, Control V that down here, hook that up to the completed. We want to go ahead and instead of apply effect, we want to remove effect from all. And then hook that up to the completed here. The effect that we want to remove is that gameplay effect underscore pre-game lobby. And that will remove that widget waiting for players, as well as give our characters the ability to damage each other. Okay, so you could test that out if you wanted to, but I already know that that's going to work. And so next up, we want to go ahead and start implementing our scoring system. And this will actually take a good 10 to 15 minutes to set up. But we're going to use all of the built-in Lyra scoring components and all that stuff. That way it makes our life a lot easier, and all that stuff is pretty much already built in. It'll just take a second to explain all of it. So let's go ahead and start by adding our scoring system. So if we scroll up here to the very top of our event begin play in our sequence, go ahead and alt click to unconnect that sequence and drag this up and connect everything else to the then 1. And then off of the then 0, we'll do some blueprint logic here to initialize our scoring system. So to use the Lyra scoring system, we drag off of here and we can listen for gameplay messages. So this is the event that you want to call to listen for any sort of updates for your scoring. So the channel that you want to search for is for Lyra.elimination message. So go ahead and hit the checkboxes there. The payload type will be of the Lyra verb message. And then off of the on message received, we want to get Lyra team subsystem. We want to add team tag stack. And then hook this up to the on message received. For the team ID, we'll use team 1. For the tag, we will use the gameplay tag. We'll search here for shooter game.score.control, control point capture. So click on the checkboxes there. And for the stack count, we'll add 1. And then we'll go ahead and add another one of these. So copy the Lyra team subsystem, drag off of that, and do a remove team tag stack. And hook this up like so. Team ID will be 1. Tag will be the same tag. Shooter game.score.control. Point capture. Stack count will be 1. So basically what this is doing is this is waiting to see if there's any sort of modification, either adding a point or moving a point to this control point capture tag. This is basically just an integer variable that holds a score. So we're going to use the control point capture tag for our amount of players that are left in the game. So this is all built-in stuff that you can actually find inside of the other game modes. If you look at the elimination game mode or the control point game mode, you're going to find all of this blueprint logic inside of those classes. If you look and dig into those classes, you're going to find the same sort of setup. Okay, so this is just the initialization. Now we have to go and implement the scoring. So down here off the complete, we want to go ahead and set the amount of players, or in this case, our team tag stack. Okay, so down here, we want to go ahead and do the same thing, get Lyra team subsystem. And off of here, we can do a add team tag stack. Hook that up. Team ID will be 1. The tag will be our shooter game.score.control point capture. The stack count will be the amount of players that we have. So to get our current amount of players, we can, off of the get all actors of class, if you get off of the array element, you can call a get length, or just length. And this will return the length of the array, in this case, the amount of players that we have currently in our match. So hook this up to the stack count. And basically what we're doing is we're setting this control points variable to the amount of players that we have. And that will allow us to change and update that whenever we eliminate another player or if someone disconnects or whatnot. So now we should be all good to go. Next up, what we want to do is go ahead and add a user interface for our amount of players left. And right now, if you were to play the game, you're going to see that we have already this scoreboard at the top of our screen. And we're just going to go ahead and use that same widget. So if we go into our B_shooter game _ Battle Royale, if you scroll down to the very bottom, you're going to see we have this UI, widgets. Expand that. We have this W_score widget elimination. Click the browse icon, and it's going to take you to the UI for the elimination game mode. So if you double click and open up this elimination scoreboard, you can see we have things like the blue team score, red team score, and the timer. Let's go ahead and go back into here and right click and duplicate this, and we can rename this to W_players left widget. Go ahead and double click to open that up, and let's go ahead and customize this. Let's just go ahead and select the ally counter size box, delete that, enemy counter size box, delete that, and now we just have this clock text. So go ahead and name the text here to 10 players left, and under the color and opacity we can set this alpha all the way back to 1, and you can set this to a white value just like that. If we compile and save this, you're going to see we have a bunch of these errors, and to fix that, just go in the graph and select everything, just delete it, And also in the functions here, just select these and delete all of these. And the variables, we can go ahead and just delete all of those and compile and save that. So now we just have a very simple 10 players left widget. And we can go ahead and assign this to our Battle Royale Lyra experience definition. So at the very bottom here under the widget class, we can click the drop down and search for our W_players left widget. Compile and save that. Now if we hit play, we should see 10 players left at the top of our screen. And currently we only have 2 players, so what we want to do is we want to go ahead and bind that value to however many players that we have currently in our game. So let's go to our scoring blueprint class, and we're going to add a function to get the current amount of players. So go ahead and under the functions, click the plus button and rename this function to get score. Compile and save that. And all we have to do is right click, get Lyra team subsystem. Off of the return value, get team tag stack count. The team ID will be 1. And the tag will be our shooter game.control score.control point capture. And the return value will return that integer, however many players we have left. So select the get score here, and we're going to add an output for this function. So click the plus button here, and the output will be named total players, and the type will be of the type integer, and then just hook up the return value to the total players. So a really simple function to get the score. So if we go back into our widget here, and over in the graph tab, we will be able to set the text of our players left to that function value. So let's actually go ahead and rename this from the clock to players left text. Compile and save that. And in the graph, we're going to go ahead and right click and add a event construct. And let's go ahead and right click and get game state. And we're going to get component by class. And then we'll get the B_scoring Battle Royale. And then we can go ahead and take the return value and promote that to a variable and name this scoring reference. So this is the reference to our scoreboard or our Battle Royale score blueprint. And then now we can go ahead and add custom event, and we can name this update the set the score. And then we can go ahead and get our scoring reference, right click, convert that to a validated get. So if our reference is valid, we can get score. So we're calling that function inside our Battle Royale mode, and we're going to get the total amount of players. Now all we have to do is get the players left text, drag off of here and do a set text. Scroll down to the very bottom, it's this set text, and hook this up, and we have to convert the integer to a text. So just drag off of here and do a toText integer. And then we want to format the text, so off of the text we can do a format text, and in the format text field we can add a curly brace. Inside that we can add num of players, and then out of the curly braces add a space and say players left. So then hook up the toInteger return value to the number of players, and basically it will set our text to the number of players left. Okay, now we have to just call this set the score event. So add event tick, and we can just call our set the score. Now, a much better way of doing this, or much cleaner way of doing this, is to just use events rather than the event tick, because event tick is called basically every frame. So if you're running the game at 60 frames a second, it's calling every single frame, and it's not really the best, most optimized method of doing things. Now, this is the same exact way that they've set up their blueprint widgets, and you can even check that if you wanted to by going into this score widget elimination. But much better way again is to set up a event-based score system. So that would mean whenever the score is updated, you want to get all the players and update all the variables for them. That way it's not running on tick. Okay, so now we should be able to test this out. If we go ahead and hit play. So you see we have 0 players left, and that's because the event or the amount of players isn't set until we are actually in the plane. Okay, so now we're in the plane. You see we have 2 players left. Right now that number won't change at all yet. So for example, if we were to jump out of the plane and also let our other player jump out of the plane. So right now we should be able to damage our other player because we remove that pre-game lobby effect. So we can actually kill our other player. And you see that the 2 players left doesn't change to 1 player left and whatnot. And actually the other player still can respawn. So what we want to do is we want to remove the other player's ability to respawn. We don't want any sort of respawns since this is Battle Royale. And we also want to update the amount of players left based on when the character dies. But right now you can see that the widget is working. So we have all of that set up. So we can go ahead and close that out. And we can actually close this hero shooter mannequin. We don't need that anymore. And the plane actor. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and modify that value of how many players are left. So let's go ahead and find the death event. So if you go to all and search for gameplay ability _ hero _ death, go ahead and double click to open that up. So this ability is called every time that the player dies. And basically we can go ahead and add some logic here at the end to modify and update amount of players left variable. So off of the trigger FX, we can go ahead and disconnect that. And what we can do is get game state. Go ahead and drag off here, get component by class. And then we can go ahead and get the B _ scoring Battle Royale. And we want to drag off here and just check and see if it is valid. So do a is valid check. So if this is the current game state, or if this scoring mode is valid, then we can go ahead and apply all this stuff. So now what we want to do is we want to set the score. So in our scoring Battle Royale, let's go ahead and add another function. We'll name this set score. So off of the set score, we can go ahead and get Lyra team subsystem. We want to do remove team tag stack. So this will remove one value from the amount of players. So set the team ID to 1 and set the tag to that shooter game dot score dot control point capture. And technically, if you wanted to, you could add your own gameplay tag, like Battle Royale dot players left tag or something like that. But in our case, we're just using this control points capture tag because it's already integer that we can just use in this mode. We can set the stack count to 1, so this will remove 1 from that value. Now after this, we want to go ahead and check to see if the current amount of players is equal to 1. That way we can see if there's 1 player left. And so to do that, we can go ahead and just get the score. So we can call this function, and it will return the amount of players left. So we can go ahead and drag off here and do a equals. And if this is equal to 1, we can do a branch and hook that up. So if it is equal to 1, that basically means that someone has won the game. If not, we will just continue the game. So we can add another function, and we want to name this to onWin. And if we go back to our set score, we can, off of the true, call our onWin function. And then if false, we can just do a return node, add a return node. And now we have our set score function that we can call inside of our gameplay hero death. So let's go ahead and call our set score. So if the scoring mode is valid, let's go ahead and remove 1 from the score. And then we also want to add some sort of spectate mode. So right now, the player is able to respawn. And instead of giving our player the ability to respawn, we want them to have a spectator mode that they can use to fly around the level or view some of the other players while the game is continuing. So let's go ahead and implement that real quick. So off the set score, we can do a spawn actor from class. And the actor to spawn will be a spectator pawn. And off the spawn transform location, go ahead and promote this or split the struct pin. And we can go ahead and promote this to a variable. And then we need to allow our character to possess this. So down here, off of this break gameplay event data, off of this target here, we want to drag off of here and get player controller from object and hook this up, and off the return value to a possess and possess the spectator pawn and hook that up like so. Go ahead and drag all this stuff and hook this up to the is not valid. Okay, so this will allow our character to possess a spectator pawn when they've died, only if the Battle Royale mode is valid. Okay, so this will allow our character to still work with some of the other modes. Now, one thing that we also want to do is we want to remove our character's ability to respawn. And we can do that by going to our experience definition. If you scroll up here to the top, under the abilities, so if you expand all these abilities, under the granted ability sets, you can see we have this ability set elimination. So if you click this browse icon, it'll find it in the content browser. Double click to open it up. Expand these, and you see we have 2 gameplay abilities. We have gameplay ability show leaderboard team deathmatch and gameplay ability auto respawn. So what we want to do is we want to just delete this granted ability set. So just click this trash can icon to remove that. And looks like we have an error here. So we want to go ahead and actually just delete this abilities list. So compile and save that, and we should be good now. Okay, So we've gotten rid of the ability to respawn. We've also implemented the setting of the score. And we've also implemented a spectator pawn. So let's go ahead and test all this stuff out. So we spawn in, this is the warm-up. So we can't damage each other, we're waiting for additional players. And after 15 seconds, we'll teleport up to the plane. So now we're flying across the map here. And we can go ahead and jump out of our plane. And have our other player jump out of the plane as well. Just go ahead and run down over here. And if we go ahead and kill the other player, you're going to see that we have one player left. And you're also going to see that we have this character spawn in with this spectator pawn. So we go ahead and fly around now. We basically have this spectator pawn that allows us to fly around the level. Now you see the spawn point was set to 0, 0. So we can go ahead and change that. And we also have some of these errors here. And we can go ahead and minimize this for now. But the very first thing is we want to go ahead and get a random location to spawn our spectator pawn. Maybe some location in the middle of the map. So let's just go ahead and add a basic cube here. And then right click the location, copy that. And go into our gameplay ability Hero Death. And for the spawn transform, just go ahead and paste that cube's location. Then we can go ahead and delete the cube. And our spectator should spawn from that location. So now we should be able to test this out. If we kill the other player, you can see they spawn in with the spectator pawn at the center of the map. And basically they can fly around and watch the entire game continue. Also, you can see that we have this one player left. And what we want to do is we want to go ahead and implement the victory or the event to win. Basically, when there's one player left, it will do the victorious widget, and then it will reset the game. So what we can do is stop playing in the editor here. If we go into our scoring Battle Royale, we already are calling our on win. So all we have to do is implement this function here. So off of the on win, we can drag off of here and do a get all actors of class of the type Lyra character, and then do a for each loop. And off the array element, we just have to do a has matching gameplay tag. And we're going to check and see if the tag is status.death.dying. Okay, add a branch by pressing B and hook that up. So all the players that are basically dead won't have the victorious widget or the victory. Congratulations, whatnot. The last player standing off of the false will have that you've won widget. So now off the array element here, we can do a find team from object. So this is a nice little function we can use to apply a gameplay queue. So off of the event team ID, we can do make gameplay queue parameters. Then we can go ahead and drag off the return value and add gameplay queue on actor looping. So hook this up like so. The target will be get game state, and the gameplay queue tag will be of the type, we search here, gameplay queue dot shooter game dot user message dot match decided. So this is that victorious widget that pops up whenever you win the game. Then all we have to do is right click, get the Lyra Game phase subsystem, and we want to start phase post game. So basically what this will do is after the victorious whatnot, it will start the phase post game, which basically tells the entire game to reset the level and set all the players back to the spawn points. So this is a really useful function. Like I said, if you use all of the starting phases, ending phases, and all that stuff, it will make use of all the built-in functionality that's already inside of Lyra. Okay, so all of this is set up. One thing that I want to do before I test all this stuff out is I actually want to add some spawn points for our characters. So over here is like our lobby island. So if you've ever played Fortnite before or PUBG, you basically have like a lobby island where all the players will spawn, and you can't really leave the island until you have enough players to start the game. And basically you can't damage or kill other players on this island. It's just for running around, practicing your aim, and waiting for the game to start. So let's go ahead and create some spawn points here. So if you click the Q+ icon and we search for all classes, we search for Lyra character or Lyra player start, we can drag one of these into here. And let's just go ahead and drag this up. And we'll go ahead and alt drag these to duplicate a couple of these, just like so. And you'd want to add quite a bit of spawn points, just so, you know, if you have like 60 players, you probably want to add around like 60 different spawn points. Technically, if the player spawns in and moves out of the spawn point, then it should be fine, but just add a decent amount of spawn points. And now if we hit play, we should spawn on this lobby island. Okay, so we spawned over here, and you could add like collision boxes so that people can't jump out of the island or whatnot. We can't damage our players. And now we're on the plane. So we're going to go ahead and wait till we get over the level. And now we can go ahead and eject out of the plane. And we can go ahead and test and see if we can win the game. So let's go ahead and shoot our enemy player. And you can see here we have this victorious widget and the player has the defeated. Okay, now it's going to do that post game setup. So you can see here it resets the game. And basically we spawn in back on the lobby island. So we could test this out with 3 or 4 players or more, and it's all going to work. And that's pretty much all of the scoring system, as well as what happens when someone wins a game, and also the spectator bot. So all that should be set up now. The very last thing that we want to implement is the circle that shrinks around the map. So this is really common in your Battle Royale game. To put pressure on the players, you'll spawn a circle that does damage, and it will shrink to move all the players to the center of the map. So let's go ahead and start by adding that. So let's go to our Battle Royale folder. Go ahead and right click and add a new blueprint class of the type actor. And we can go ahead and name this to BP underscore shrinking circle. Go ahead and double click to open that up. And in here we just add 2 components, the first one being a capsule collision. And then on the capsule collision we'll add a static mesh. And if you select the mesh in the details panel, we're going to add a cylinder. So select this cylinder right here, and we're going to go ahead and scale this down to negative 0.4. Just copy and paste that all around. And negative 4.37. And just copy and paste that value. And basically this is just setting the mesh to match up with the capsule collision. Now we also want to apply a material to this static mesh. That way it actually looks like the circle. So let's go ahead and make a material real quick. Right click, add a material, and just name this circle_M, circle material. And double click it and open that up. And this is just going to be really quick, transparent circle material. So click on the material node graph here, and we want to set this to translucent. So click from opaque to translucent, and also you want to set this to two-sided. And then off of the base color, drag off of here, we want to add a vector parameter, and we'll add a bluish color here. And for our opacity, add a scalar parameter, and we can set the default value of 0.3. So just really quick, transparent blue circle material. Then we can apply it to this cylinder. So click on the static mesh cylinder. We can go ahead and search for our circle_M. Compile and save that. Now in our graph, we can go ahead and work on implementing the shrinking ability as well as the damage ability. Okay, so whenever a player enters the storm, they're going to be damaged, but if they are inside the center, they're going to be safe. So basically the outside they're going to get damaged, but in the inside they'll be safe. So very first thing is we want to get the event be in play. Do switch has authority. That way everything off of this is running on the server. Then we want to go ahead and get our capsule here and get overlapping actors. And we want to set the class filter to the type Lyra character. So we're going to get all the characters and do a for each loop and hook that up to the authority. So basically what we want to do is once this circle is spawned in, we want to get all of the overlapped actors and apply a tag to those characters saying that they are in the circle. That way they don't take any sort of damage. And after that we want to get all of the characters in the game and see if they are in the circle, if they have that tag, because if they don't, then that means that they are outside of the circle and they need to start taking damage. So off the array element we can wait gameplay tag add to actor. So this will apply a tag to our character. And let's go ahead and add a new tag. So if you click this edit, click this down, add a new gameplay tag. The name will be in circle, and click add new tag. Okay, so we've created our own in circle tag here. Then off of the completed, what we want to do is get all actors of class Lyra character and do a for each loop. And then for each character we want to do a branch, and we want to check and see if they have that tag. So has matching gameplay tag. Okay, so in circle, so if the player is currently in the circle, that means that we don't have to do anything. We don't have to apply any sort of damage because they are safe. But if they are not in the circle, we're going to apply a gameplay effect so that our player can take damage over time. So we want to get ability system component, and then we want to apply an effect to our character. So apply gameplay effect to self, hook that up for the false, and the effect that we want to play is gameplay effect damage. So gameplay effect pad damage. So this is an effect that comes built in and basically applies around, I think, 5 to 10% damage every couple seconds. So you'll take about 5 or 10 damage every couple seconds if you are outside of the circle. And once that is completed, we want to call an event to start shrinking the circle. Okay, so let's go ahead and just add a comment over this. And basically this will be named apply damage to players outside circle. And then we want to add a custom event over here. Name this shrink circle. And so off of the completed, we can call that event shrink circle. And then we can add a comment over the shrink circle here. And let's make this a little bit bigger. This will be our shrink circle logic. So let's go ahead and work on implementing that real quick. So this event actually needs to be a run on server. And then we want to do a set timer by event. So every 0.3 seconds or 300 milliseconds, we want to loop an event. So click the looping here, and off the event, we want to add custom event. Let's name this to set capsule size. We're going to add a new variable here and name this starting scale, and this will be of the type vector. Compile and save that, and we can go ahead and get the starting scale and then subtract by 1. And then we want to set the starting scale to basically the starting scale minus 1 and then set it. And then we want to add another custom event, and this will be set capsule multicast. So we want to change the event to a multicast. We want to add an input of the type of vector and name this to scale. Then call this event set capsule multi and hook up the starting scale to the scale like that. Compile that. We might get this little error. We just need to delete the event, compile it, and then recall it. That basically happens when you don't compile after adding a new custom event. So go ahead and compile that. And then off of this set capsule multi, we just have to set world transform of our capsule. And then the transform, let's go ahead and right click and split this struct and plug in the scale for our new transform scale. Okay, compile and save that. And that should be all good for our shrinking circle logic. So basically, as soon as we apply damage to everyone who's outside the circle, as soon as this circle is spawned in, we're going to start shrinking, and we're going to loop this event to set the starting scale of this capsule and subtract that by 1 every 0.3 seconds. And we're just going to multicast that so that happens on all the clients. We also want to set the starting scale value. So if you click the starting scale, you can add a scale of 800, 800, 800. And you can actually test that value if you go into your level here and drag in your shrinking circle. If you set the scale to 800, 800, and 800, you're going to see how big the circle is. So we can position this over the map. And so this is going to be basically the starting scale, and it will only shrink from there. Okay, so we can go ahead and just delete that for now. Okay, so we have the circle shrinking logic, we have the damage logic. Now what we also want to apply is basically we want to add an event for whenever a player enters or exits the circle, we want to apply damage to that character. Okay, so select the capsule here, and if you scroll down the very bottom, we have this on component begin overlap and on component end overlap. So click the on begin overlap. We also want to add a on end overlap. Go ahead and select these and add a comment for this. And we're just going to rename this to add or remove damage. And we can go ahead and make this a little bit larger there. So basically when the player begins overlap with the capsule, or basically when they enter the capsule, when they're inside the circle, they're safe. But when they end overlap or exit the circle, basically that means that they're outside the circle. They'll take damage, if that makes sense. Over here we want to do a switch has authority. Just want to double check and make sure that this only runs on the server. We want to check and see if the other actor has matching gameplay tag. Hook that up to the authority. The tag to check is a Lyra.player. So we're basically just checking to see if the other actor is a Lyra character. Then if so, we can add a branch. And we can go ahead and get the other actor and get ability system component, and we can remove active gameplay effect by source effect. So hook that up for the true, and the gameplay effect will be our damage pad. Search for gameplay effect pad underscore damage, and that will be -1. And as for our end overlap, we're basically going to do the same thing. So let's just go ahead and duplicate all this. So copy and paste this down here. Hook this up, hook up the other actor, and instead of remove ability, we want to apply. So apply gameplay effect to self, and off of the true we can apply the damage pad gameplay effect. So compile and save that, and we should have all of our circle logic set up. So we have the initial damage when the circle spawns in. Then we have the shrinking logic, and also entering and exiting the circle. So to spawn this in the level, what we want to do is in our scoring battle royale, here in the event graph, we want to go ahead and spawn this somewhere after all of our characters eject out of the plane. So here at the very end, we can add a delay. So I think in Fortnite it's around a minute or so, minute or 2 minutes that you have before the circle basically spawns in. But in our case, for testing purposes, we can add, say, 40 seconds. And then we can go ahead and spawn actor from class. Select the actor will be our shrinking circle blueprint. right click the spawn transform, split the pin, and we're going to promote the spawn location to a variable. We can name this circle location. Now if you wanted to, you could also randomize the shrinking of the circle, like where exactly it shrinks to. But that is totally up to you. You could have like an array of these locations and just pick a random one. But in our case, let's just go ahead and spawn one of these into our level right here. And let's just copy the location of that and go ahead and paste that right there. And that should be everything that we need to do. So let's go ahead and save all that and click play. Okay, so we're in the play now, and basically we have about 40 seconds now till the circle spawns in, and we should see the circle spawning here any second now. Okay, so we just got damaged by the circle. Looks like we have a little bug there. So let's go ahead and go back into the circle blueprint. And we forgot to do one thing, which is select the static mesh and disable the collision on the mesh. So go ahead and select the static mesh and set this to no collision. In our class defaults, you want to scroll down to the details and also check this replicates. So this is important because we want to make sure that these events are replicating, and also so we can see everything happening in real time. Okay, so it just spawned in there, and we actually take some initial damage, but I'll talk about that bug later. But if we go to the edge here, you can see the circle material slowly shrinking. You can't really see it well up against the sky, but if you look down here, you can see the edge of the circle. So we'll go ahead and wait for that to start shrinking. So you can see over here, here's part of it right there. So I can exit the circle, and looks like we aren't taking any sort of damage. So we might need to fix that. What we accidentally did is we use this event component and static mesh instead of the capsule. So we want to click on the capsule and add the event and overlap. Go ahead and delete this event and overlap static mesh and use this capsule instead. So let's go ahead and hook that up. And that should allow our character to be damaged by the circle. Alright, so now if we go ahead and look at the circle, right now we're inside of the circle, so we're not taking any damage, but if we exit, we'll start taking this passive damage over time because we are outside the circle. But if we go back inside, you see we have that gameplay effect, damage removed from our character. And again, we can exit and start taking damage, and we can go back inside the circle and be completely safe. So that's basically the circle effect, the shrinking circle. Of course, you could always add a better material, that way you could see it much better. But that pretty much should do it for this entire Battle Royale tutorial. So you can see we can kill the player and we have this victorious screen. We also have a spectator bot that the player can view. And then we also have this resetting of the map and level back to this lobby island. So you could completely customize this out, create your own sort of custom map, and also add various different types of pickups. So if you wanted to, on this lobby island, what you could do is go to the all content, under the plugins, shooter core content, under the blueprint, you have all these different types of pickups. So you could have things like the weapon spawner. So if you add one of these in here and pull this up, and under the weapon pickup you could add a rifle. So you have a basic rifle pickup. You could duplicate this and add a shotgun and whatnot. You could also have a health pickup as well. So you could completely customize this map out and add buildings, different types of weapon pickups, health pickups, all that sort of stuff, and really customize your own Battle Royale map. And in fact, I show you how to create a open world sort of map that's kind of inspired by Fortnite in one of my previous tutorials. So if you want to learn how to make that map, make sure you go ahead and check that video out. But that's pretty much going to do it for this tutorial. I just wanted to show you how you can implement a Battle Royale mode using all of the built-in features of the Lyra Starter Game. We've implemented our own custom Lyra experience definition, our own scoring blueprint, as well as a few custom different blueprints such as our shrinking circle, our plane waypoints, and our plane actor. Anyways, I hope this tutorial was useful for you guys, and hopefully you learned something from it. But if you guys want to download this template project, you can download it on my Patreon. I'll also be working on creating some more different Lyra tutorials, probably adding all sorts of vehicles and things like that. But yeah, just let me know what you guys want to see for Lyra content, as well as just Unreal Engine tutorials in general, down in the comments down below. And yeah, just leave a like on the video, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.